being very bored. When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him and other criminals there, one on his right, the other on his left. Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do.
I got stuck with the first one, so we have to hear what these ones are. When I was thinking about what I wanted to say for this, I started thinking about how easy it is to forget things that we hear all the time. When I was in grad school taking my education classes, one of the things that they taught us, especially as new teachers, was to repeat everything that you want the kids to understand or remember over and over and over again until you can't stand the sound of your own voice. The idea was if everyone heard it enough, you would remember it. But I think what happens when we repeat things, even very important things, over and over again, what happens is we stop to listen, and we stop listening. And when we stop listening, we start filling in. We start filling in things that we think we're supposed to hear rather than what we're actually supposed to hear. We start forgetting things about the stories that we're supposed to hear that make us uncomfortable. And then we stop caring. I think when it comes to the story of the Passion and Crucifixion of Jesus, we hear the story all the time. We hear it every year. We stop listening. And we forget all of the details. And it's in the details that make things matter. And when we stop listening to the details, and we start filling in that what we think happened rather than what actually happened, we start losing the most important parts of why we tell that story, of why every year we recite the Passion of Christ, why every year we recite it on Friday. And when we stop doing that, when we stop listening, we stop caring. Because it's not important for us to listen, it's certainly not important for us to care. And when we don't care, we stop showing up. We stop going to church because it's easier to sleep in late and watch football and baseball, because they're way more fun. We stop going because mani-pedis won't get themselves done. And we stop going because it's not about us, it's about someone else. We decide that vacations are much easier done during Easter because everyone is off. And we stop being present. And as we do that, we forget what this is actually about. And it all happens because we stop listening, because we hear it all the time. We see it in our classrooms, we see the sign of the cross in our classes, we see the sign of the cross every time we do prayers. And we never stop to think about what that symbol actually means. And here we are at the end of Lent, and still I hear you guys talking about what I gave up or failed to give up for Lent, what we were supposed to have given up. Because that's all we reduce this experience to. Just a competition about who can give up what and who can give up the most stuff. 40 days without candy, or soda, or coffee, or Instagram. But that's not what Lent is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a time when we find our focus again. It's supposed to be a time when we remember how to listen and what to listen to. So let's take a moment and think about what we're going to listen to tonight. Let's take a moment to think about what we're going to listen to the next few days. All of this begins in the garden. And that's not an accident. It begins in a garden because Jesus' passion is meant to set right what went wrong in the garden long ago, when man first defied God and chose himself over God. The garden where Jesus begins his passion is known as Gethsemane, and that's an interesting word for a lot of reasons. The word literally means place where things are pressed, because it was a mountain where they grew olives. And the garden where Jesus finds himself after the Last Supper is where they would crush heavy stones together in order to squish out the precious olive oil, which is, anyone that's ever been to an Italian store knows is real expensive. And Jesus, too, is going to undergo that type of pressure. When Jesus is there, he begins to pray. But he's under so much stress about what is going to happen next that his capillaries in his face and on his body literally begin to burst. And sweat blood. This is actually a real medical condition. It's called hematosis. And it is exceedingly rare, but it does happen. Can you imagine being under so much pressure and stress that you literally begin to sweat blood? Think about what that meant for what is coming next. And as he bleeds, contemplating what he knows is going to happen, the violence that is about to take place, he finds himself with a choice. I often tell everybody here, and it's one of my favorite sayings, that leadership is a choice. I even have it written on our shirts. Here's why. Jesus is completely and totally aware of what's coming next. He knows his friend will betray him. He knows he will be arrested, locked in a small, dark room, alone, helpless, afraid. He knows he's going to be given a show trial, convicted of crimes he did not commit. He knows he will have a crown of thorns placed onto his head, tearing into his skull, cutting him deeper and deeper every time he moves. You know that Roman soldiers will take a whip, called the cat of nine tails, and strike him with it. He knows that the whip is going to have little hooks or pieces of bone or little balls on it that are designed to dig into his flesh and catch onto him, so that when the soldiers pull the whip back, it will literally tear muscle and tendon and flesh from his back. He knows that he is going to be stripped naked. He knows that he is going to be forced to carry the cross upon which he will die through the streets of Jerusalem. He knows that the splinters from that cross will dig into his open wounds. He knows that his blood will literally clot onto that cross. He knows that all of this will happen in front of his mother. He knows that even after all of this, he will be nailed to the cross, placed upon a hill above the entire city, to be mocked, spit at, naked, humiliated, and broken. There finally, almost mercifully, he will die a slow and painful death as his lungs give out and he is unable to breathe. He knows all of this, every piece of it. And what's most important, he would see Judas and the soldiers coming up the mountain. He would have a way out. He'd have a choice. And we know he's afraid. He asks God, please take this from me. But he says, according to your will, let it be done. And he doesn't run. He embraces that which comes next. He embraces the violence and the death. And beyond that, he says, forgive them. They don't understand. In the face of all of that, he says, forgive me. Why? How? Because in all of that, we forget the most important reason why this happens. Because the most important reason why the suffering of the cross must happen is because of us. The most important reason why the suffering of the cross must happen is because the God of the universe that made all of this decided that he loved each and every one of us so much that he would be willing to suffer and die rather than be without us. And we don't think about that when we make the sign of the cross, at Mass, at prayers. We don't think about that when we see it on our walls or in our classrooms. We do it so much, we do it without thinking. We do it without caring. But Jesus wouldn't have stopped caring. He never stopped caring. Not for the soldiers who spit at him, or the crowds that mocked him. Not for those who betrayed him, or didn't believe in him. Not for me, and not for you. He would never stop caring. He would be willing to suffer and do all of this again. So tonight, tonight as we pray, let us try to remember the why of this moment. Let us try to care about the great act of love that brought us all here. And most importantly, for these last few days of these 40 days of Lent, let us find the strength and the courage again to listen.